All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and LSU quarterback just had his pro day. Jayden Daniels with the rest of his LSU brothers over there. Of course, we're here to talk about the Jayden Daniels part of it. Of course, we saw him dap up Adam Peters before the pro day. Looked to be like a little bit of something there. Also, we get his official measurements, his weight, his hand size. We're going to talk about all of that and compare his hand size to other quarterbacks in the NFL. Are his hands too small? Are they big enough? All of that type of stuff. Also, it's already been reported that he's meeting with the Washington Commanders after the pro day. Should we read too far into that? Like, we met with JJ McCarthy before the pro day, and Caleb Williams, who we're assumed to not even be able to have a chance to get, we met with him after his pro day, after the USC pro day. Does that mean that we do not like Jayden Daniels? We're going to dive into that. Also, does Jayden Daniels have an elbow issue that nobody noticed? We're going to dive into all of that chaos that took place on Twitter because of the picture that Adam Schefter tweeted. And of course, Jayden Daniels talked about the Commanders after his pro day and gave his take on potentially being drafted second overall in the first round to us. And then of course I'm gonna come to y'all with some pro day analysis, all of that type of stuff. But before we dive into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you follow the Facebook, the Instagram, the TikTok, and the Twitter accounts, because we are now making content everywhere. So I really appreciate y'all. I have a lot more content on the way. Mock drafts, we have jersey number updates. We're gonna dive into what that means as far as players projected roles. We're gonna do a full cap space update and everything, and who can we still afford, who are some free agents that are still available, top guys at their positions that we may want to get, and can we afford them, all of that type of stuff. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this video right now. Let's get it. Adam. And before we get into anything, shouts out to my dog Reggie T for the big time Cash App donation. Again, I'm gonna tell y'all every time, thank you, because y'all are donating while I'm not even live streaming to be able to thank you immediately. And I feel like the least I can do is to show my appreciation in my very next video after y'all donate. So I really appreciate that. That's my dog Reggie T, and thank you, man. It took a lot of work and research to finally understand all of those rules that I did in my previous video. Go check that out if you haven't already, because the NFL is going to look completely different next year. I don't know if a lot of y'all noticed, but I did a full over 40-minute breakdown of a lot of the different changes going on, like trade deadline moving, different rules, how the kickoff is going to look, what is a swivel hip drop. I did a full dive into all of that. So if you haven't checked that out, go check that out in my previous video, of course. But again, shouts out to my boy Reggie T for the big time Cash App donation. Now let's get it. And before we get into everything, remember, shouts out to John Con for this tweet. I completely agree. Reminder on what matters for quarterbacks at pro days: interaction with teammates, pre and post workout interviews, explaining decisions, etc., seeing and feeling the arm strength, but completing passes on air. Don't go overboard. Of course, failing to complete would be an issue, but there's not much positive we could take from it. If anything, pro days only expose their potential weaknesses. But we're going to dive into that. We're going to get to that throughout this video and everything. But moving on, just to give you an update, it was confirmed Commanders wise that we had general manager Adam Peters, head coach Dan Quinn, offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, and assistant GM Lance Newmark, just to go ahead and give you that update. And of course, we're expecting all of those same people to be at UNC's pro day to watch Drake Maye tomorrow. And of course, all of those people were at JJ McCarthy's Michigan pro day, and all of those people were at Caleb Williams' USC pro day. So nothing to really dive into too much. If anything, those guys not being there would have been bigger news than those guys being there, because they've been everywhere. They're doing their due diligence, and Adam Peters is doing a great job of making sure that nobody in the entire world knows they're taking a quarterback. And again, like I've already discussed in other videos, maybe they're leaning towards a specific guy, maybe they prefer a certain guy yet, but the draft pick has not been made yet. We still have a lot of the process left to do. We still have to meet with Jayden Daniels and Drake Maye in person, actually fly them out to Ashburn to work out for us and things like that. So I'm not even sure if Adam Peters and those guys even absolutely know 100% sure who they're taking right now. So when we hear all these reports, just remember that. Also, Jayden Daniels, of course, declined to be weighed and measured at the combine in any way. But I'm still confused about what that actually did, because he was gonna already do it at his pro day. We already knew that. And most importantly, when he goes on these visits that I just briefly mentioned earlier, when he goes to Ashburn and with the teams that actually potentially plan on drafting him, they're going to weigh him themselves. They're going to do their own weigh-in. So was he just hiding from the combine to like delay his opportunity to like maybe gain a little bit more weight before the pro day? Like, did he not feel like he weighed enough by the combine? Like, what was the advantage there? I'm still not exactly sure why he didn't just go ahead and get weighed at the combine, because he was going to get weighed at his pro day like he did, and he's going to get weighed in person by the teams that plan on potentially drafting him. So I still don't exactly get the point of that. But moving on, his height is officially 6'3" and 5/8. His weight is 210 pounds. That's the most important thing. His hand size is 9 inch 3/8. So we're going to talk about that as well. And then his arm length is 32 and a half. And then his wingspan is 76 and 3/4. But the most important ones are the weight and the hand length. We're going to talk about that. And of course, he skipped all on the field work, like 40 time, vertical, bench, all of that type of stuff. I mean, that wasn't going to potentially raise his draft stock at all. I can see why he skipped on those, because with him projected to go second overall, potentially, maybe third at worst, I mean, doing those things could only potentially hurt him and make him fall even further down the draft. It was really all to lose and nothing to really gain, because say he goes out there and runs a slow 40 time while weighing that 210 pounds, now people are gonna look at him crazy, because it's like, you still only weigh 210 pounds, you should be faster than that. And right now, when you look at the game tape, he looks plenty fast. He's out here outrunning Alabama DBs, who are some of the fastest defensive backs in all of college football. So at that point, running that 40 time would do nothing for him and only potentially put him in harm's way of, first of all, getting hurt while running it. We see people all of the time get hurt running 40 times, but then also he would only risk losing draft stock and would have nothing to gain. And going back to that 210 weigh-in, that's good enough. We're good to go. I'll take it. I mean, I'm a big Jayden Daniels fan, and I feel like that's good enough, man. Shouts out to my boy Jamal at Let Maul Tell It. Great film breakdowns and everything. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. Follow his Trap or Die podcast on YouTube and everything. He brought up a great point. He tweeted, again, it wasn't that big of a deal to me personally where Jayden came in, barring he was significantly underweight. But hopefully that quieted some of y'all who ever cared that much. And I completely agree, because I don't really care about his weight. He looks like he can ball out, and as long as he just avoids taking those stupid cartoonish Looney Tunes looking hits that he was taking in college at times while trying to gain like an extra 3 yards instead of just going down, which is easily coachable, then I'm not really worried about his weight much at all. Also, JP Finley said that a scout told him personally that 210 was the magic number for Jayden, and he got literally right at it, like right at the line. Nothing more, nothing less, which is completely hilarious to me, man. I mean, he hit right at it. It sounds like this whole time, maybe he heard from behind the scenes from scouts, maybe his offensive coordinator that's now with Notre Dame told him, maybe his current head coach for LSU, maybe somebody found out that like through the grapevine, you need to get to 210. And maybe this whole time for the past couple of weeks, he's literally been doing whatever it takes, diet, working out wise, to get to exactly 210. Again, nothing more, nothing less is hilarious to me. He heard 210, he said, bet. I got you 210. Exactly. I thought that was hilarious. Also, just to remind you, Lamar Jackson was 216 at his pro day. So he's 6 pounds lighter than that. I don't think that's anything serious, anything monumental. But of course, some people do care about those things. So I do want to give you that update. And even though I am a big Jayden Daniels fan, and he's my quarterback too, only behind Caleb Williams, of course, I wouldn't be surprised if by the time the season starts, he's actually less than that 210. Because I'm assuming that he got up to that weight specifically for that weigh-in. I mean, maybe even by tomorrow, he's not even 210 pounds. I wouldn't be surprised. But on the other hand, maybe an NFL workout program and diet will actually get him bigger than 210. Maybe. We'll see, because college does like for their quarterbacks to be very mobile, and at the NFL level, maybe they won't prioritize that as much. We're going to love to use his legs if we end up drafting them, but I feel like in college, if anything, they were like, bro, you better keep that weight down. We don't want you eating. We want you out here outrunning Alabama DBs, where at the NFL level, maybe he has the capacity to gain some weight. He looks like he has the frame for it, and maybe LSU was doing all that they could to keep him underweight, and then maybe when he gets to the NFL and the Commanders actually feed him some food and get him to actually lift a little bit of weight, maybe he actually could play a little bit heavier than that without sacrificing much of his 40 time and his speed. Who knows? We'll see. Also, when it comes to hand size, just in case if y'all were wondering if that's big or not, and of course I had to look it up myself. I don't just have quarterback hand sizes memorized. I'm just not that much of a tryhard, and also my memory's terrible. So when we're talking about Jayden Daniels' hand size, just to go back to it real quick, he is 9 3/8 inch, which puts him at the same hand size as a Sam Darnold and a Tom Brady. But that is bigger than Taylor Heineke, bigger than Jimmy Garoppolo, Pat Mahomes, Teddy Bridgewater, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, Derek Carr, Jared Goff, Ryan Tannehill, Joe Burrow, and Taysom Hill. Outside of Taysom Hill, Joe Burrow, Ryan Tannehill, and Jared Goff have the smallest hands in the NFL, and they've still found ways to have success. So that's something that I feel like is completely blown out of proportion, because the guy with the biggest hand size out of any of like the top quarterbacks is Russell Wilson with the 10 1/4 inch. His are bigger than Josh Allen's and Aaron Rodgers, but you don't really see people bringing that up when we talk about how good Russell Wilson is and things like that. Maybe that plays a bigger role into why he's good and we just don't think about it. Who knows? But I feel like the hand size thing really isn't that serious at all. His hand size is also bigger than Trey Lance's, bigger than Drew Lock's, all of those guys. So I'm not really worried about that, but I still felt the need to update y'all on that, just in case if y'all were wondering. You know, this is Rico Street Scores. We got to touch every basis, leave no stone left unturned, even if I feel like it's something pointless. And remember, Daniels, of course, met with the Commanders before the combine. He said his interview was cool. He's very nonchalant just in general. I wonder how he is actually like in person and not just in front of the media, in front of a mic. I'm gonna have to do some digging to see who he is just hanging out around his folks and them, because is he actually just this nonchalant all the time? We're gonna talk about that towards the end of this video when he talks about the Commanders and the potential of getting drafted to us after the pro day just concluded like an hour ago. Very nonchalant in that as well. And as expected, of course, to me, it would have been real news if we didn't meet with him at the combine. I feel like us meeting with him at the combine was pretty much part of the process that was expected. So again, if we didn't meet with him, that would have been newsworthy. But us meeting with him during the combine has absolutely no headline to it at all. But Ian Rappaport did tweet out that immediately following his pro day, LSU quarterback and potential top 3 pick Jayden Daniels is scheduled to meet with the Patriots, Commanders, Giants, Vikings, Broncos, and Raiders, per his agent Ron Butler. Daniels has not previously met with any teams. That's very noteworthy. And so my first thought was, do we not like Jayden Daniels that much? Because we met with JJ McCarthy before his pro day, and then the only guy, I guess, out of the top quarterbacks that we didn't meet with until after his pro day was Caleb Williams, and that's probably because we assume he's going #1 overall. We feel like we have no chance to get him, and we waited until after his pro day to meet with him. So basically, my point is, whether we meet with the quarterback before or after his pro day, does that show how interested we are in that particular quarterback, or is that just complete coincidence? That was my first thought. But then it was reported that Daniels' team intentionally didn't set up any meetings or dinners until after the pro day. So that was not on the Commanders' fault. That was not on the Commanders' side of things. That was just completely on the Jayden Daniels and his camp side of things. So who knows? Maybe that theory still exists. Maybe we're actually really interested and feel like we have a real chance of getting a quarterback if we meet with them before their pro day rather than afterwards. And then the Jayden Daniels situation doesn't count either way because we didn't really have a choice there. Also, in the picture that Adam Schefter posted, when I just read off the tweet about him meeting with the Patriots, Commanders, Giants, Vikings, Broncos, and Raiders per his agent and all of that, in that picture, it's like something really weird with Jayden Daniels' elbow. Like, what's wrong with Buddy elbow, man? Is he okay? Like, that looks pretty crazy. I'm not gonna lie. It looks so mechanical. It looks wrong. It looks glitched, photoshopped, edited. I don't know. Where did Adam Schefter even get this picture? It looks very robotic. That literally is just unrealistic. So of course, with Twitter being Twitter, This got a lot of people talking about how he's not a first-round quarterback because of an elbow condition or something like that. And then you had like this doctor. I mean, of course, people were pointing out different angles and pictures of his elbow, and none of them have his elbow looking like that. I don't know where Adam Schefter got that picture. That looks like when you try to do like an AI generated picture and there's like the random glitches that make somebody not look human. That looks like one of those. And again, first of all, I feel like that elbow just doesn't even look realistic. Like that don't even, it's not even just his elbow, it's like the arm too. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. But even beyond that, then you had a doctor named Jesse Morse, MD, at Dr. Jesse Morse, saying that Jayden Daniels appears to be dealing with olecranon burstisis of his right elbow. I don't even know how you pronounce that. I'm not even about to take the time to try to figure out how to pronounce that because I don't care. It's like this whole essay on what the condition is, and basically saying that even if it is a real condition, it's not really something to worry about for a draft prospect. Maybe it's a little annoying, but at the end of the day, it's not something teams should worry about. This is not a situation where you don't draft Jayden Daniels because of a condition, which again, I don't even feel like really exists because that picture looks completely unrealistic. It looks alien robotic like. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I feel like this whole thing is ridiculous. I feel like I just wasted y'all time for the last 3 to 5 minutes, but it's just, again, I'm Rico of Street Scores. I got to bring up every little thing, no matter how ridiculous, no matter how unrealistic, no matter if it's a rumor or a fact, whatever. Now moving on to what really matters. Shouts out to Tom Pelissero for pointing this out. I just want to bring up a couple of Jayden Daniels' stats before we get into his pro day and everything. First of all, he was the only player to lead the FBS in both passing yards per attempt, 11.7, and rushing yards per attempt, 8.4, in the same season, 2023, since at least 2000. He had 11.7 passing yards per attempt, 8.4 yards per carry in 2023, which of course both led the FBS. And then also Phil Yates pointed out the fact that Jayden Daniels' pro day today. Here's some gaudy passing stats that illustrate the bind he puts defenses in. Daniels when blitzed in 2023, 69 of 97, 71.1 throwing percentage, 1,072 yards, 17 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But then how about against zone coverage in 2023? Well, 121 of 156 with a 77.6 completion percentage, even better, 2,438 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. So whether you blitz them, that's not going to work. If you run zone coverage against them, that's not going to work. So what actually works against this guy is basically the point that Phil Yates is bringing up. Now moving on, he had a really interesting dap up with Adam Peters pre-pro day. Like, I just feel like, I mean, I watched a lot of the coverage. I've seen a lot of clips before the coverage. He's the only guy that he just went out of his way to like really dap up. I don't know if we should really read too deep into that or not. Again, I'm just giving y'all all of the information that I have, and then I'm just leaving it to y'all which y'all take from it or not. I'm gonna try to provide whatever analysis I can on any situation, but this may be another one of those things that this isn't really any actual news that matters, but I just thought it was interesting. And first of all, he was walking around with a basketball the whole pro day before he actually started throwing. And then he went out of his way to go dap up Adam Peters. And that's the only guy that I noticed that he went out of his way to dap up from anything that I've seen on the internet. Of course, maybe everybody just happened to not be recording when he went to dap up other people. So again, don't read into this too much, just giving y'all the information that I have. Also, Ben Standig brought up a great point. These pro days would have been perfect for Washington's offense last year since they dropped back to pass roughly 55 consecutive times. So, hey man, that's basically a shot at Eric Bieniemy, and basically these pro days were perfect for what the Commanders offense was doing last year, basically. I thought that was funny. And then also, even though pro days are super scripted and it really doesn't exactly prove how good a quarterback is, the velocity that he was throwing with in his pro day was really nice in my opinion. I saw some misses on some deep balls, which is weird because he was literally the best deep ball thrower in all of college football last year. But my point is, and why I'm saving the pro day analysis towards the end of the video, is because you really can't take too much from these pro days, good or bad, to be completely honest with you, just like John Kahn warned y'all at the beginning of this video. But one thing I do hate is how people bring up how good his receivers were last year as a negative in his evaluation with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, because if anything, his experience throwing deep bombs to receivers running in the 4-3s in stride is something that actually, if anything, is a positive for him. It's something that he does not have to learn and adjust to when he gets to the NFL level. This guy already has experience throwing to fast NFL level receivers. And you can't necessarily say that about all of the top quarterbacks. I feel like if anything, that's a unique skill that he already possesses. He won't go to the NFL and start underthrowing fast guys like Terry McLaurin because he's already been throwing the fast guys for the past 2 years already. So I'm actually very happy that he had Neighbors and Thomas in college. And of course, there's always the counter argument that Joe Burrow had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase in college, and look how that worked out. And the strong parallel there, both LSU quarterbacks on LSU transferring from other teams to get their chance for LSU. I mean, the strong parallels between Jayden Daniels and Joe Burrow is absolutely insane. But of course, there's always the other way that you look at it, to where like, okay, but if he didn't have good receivers, then he would have far more experience throwing into tight windows and things like that. And I feel like his tape, even with the great receivers that he has, does show evidence of being able to throw in tight windows. But of course, I see what people are saying with Drake Maye, with his bad receivers, had to throw in the tight windows far more often. But again, I love the fact that Jayden Daniels has experience throwing to receivers that are fast in stride, because that's an adjustment that a lot of these quarterbacks gonna have to make going to the NFL level, never throwing to receivers that are this talented and this fast. Even when it comes to something as simple as a slant route, like the timing and accuracy of that, the difference between like a Malik Neighbors compared to like a Terry McLaurin, who both run 4.3s on a slant, compared to like the slower guys that these other quarterbacks have been throwing to so far in their college careers. I mean, it's gonna be a different level of timing and accuracy. You're gonna have to throw it quicker. You're gonna have to throw it further on that same exact slant route that you've been throwing your whole life. Now it's different when you get to the NFL level, because you're playing with receivers that are faster than what you had in college. Whereas again, Jayden Daniels is basically same thing as he's been dealing with for the past couple of years. So I feel like he would have the least growing pains as far as that at least goes. I feel like if anything, that's a positive for him, and that raises his floor, if anything, in my opinion. Also, I'm not seeing this lack of arm strength that people are talking about. Like, even Bucky Brooks said he doesn't have wow arm talent during Jayden Daniels' pro day coverage, like literally while he was throwing the ball. But then look at this throw. I mean, whatever arm talent is, whatever that is, I want that. I'd be happy to draft it. If it's not wow, I don't care. I guess I don't want wow, because that was 60 plus yards in the air after spin dodging a simulated pressure and resetting his feet quickly before he could even like really gather himself all the way to deliver that ball. And he was on the left hash mark and threw it all the way down to the right side of the field. So even though it's already far just surface yardage wise vertically 60 plus yards, then you also got to consider the fact that he kind of threw it diagonal, and it was like extra yardage horizontally as well, which makes it a little bit more impressive. So I'm not really seeing this lack of arm talent. I'm not saying he has the arm talent of like a Drake Maye or a Caleb Williams that can literally make any throw off of their back foot, one toe leaning. I'm not saying that he can throw a rocket like that, but I feel like he has plenty of arm strength enough to make any throw that's necessary. Again, we can talk about his arm talent all you want. He was still the best deep ball thrower out of any quarterback this past season. And that's even including the guys that aren't even going into the draft. In 2023, no quarterback in college was better at throwing the deep ball than Jayden Daniels. The only guy that was even relatively close was technically Michael Penix Jr. Caleb Williams and Drake Maye, yeah, they have stronger arms. Yeah, you can argue they have better arm talent, but he was still the best deep ball thrower. So what does it even matter what his arm talent actually is and his arm strength and things like that? I've seen enough on tape, and especially with that clip right there, to know that this guy can make every throw that you need him to make in the course of a game. But of course, again, like I keep saying, we shouldn't take too much from these pro days, because remember, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, and Malik Willis had some of the best pro days we've ever seen, the most oohs and ahs we've ever seen, and look how they turned out. But what you can take away from his pro day and pro days in general was his mechanics, like his footwork, how quick and compact his release was. Like, there was very little wasted movement at all in his release. You see it on tape from his games with LSU, but at his pro day, when he's like really isolated, you don't have a bunch of nonsense around him, you can just see him, and his release is really nice, man. And I really like those traits. On paper, it seems coachable to be able to have that type of footwork and that type of release, quick, compact, and things like that. But we see all of the time that quarterbacks never add that to their bag and are able to adjust to that and gain that. So the fact that Jayden Daniels has that, even though on paper it sounds coachable, most quarterbacks never ever end up getting coached up into that. And also, shouts out to him for wearing that hoodie that he wore during his pro day. He wore a Greg Brooks Jr. hoodie, and he took the opportunity on Wednesday to basically honor his teammate Greg Brooks Jr. by wearing a hoodie with Brooks' name and jersey number on the back. Brooks, a transfer defensive back from Arkansas, was diagnosed during the 2023 football season with a rare form of brain cancer. He underwent a procedure to remove the tumor, and he's currently in the process of recovery. Shouts out to Jayden Daniels for that, man. I like that, man. I like that pretty much just as much as I like Michael Penix Jr. shouting out his boy back in Florida. That's I guess he's up the road or something, the way that it sounded. But hey, man, I love that right there regardless. And then after his pro day, he was asked about the Commanders specifically, and he gave the expected political answer about how happy he was about going high in the draft, and that no matter who drafts him, he's ready to go to work and all of that type of stuff. Nothing to really take from it. I mean, if anything, if you were to take anything from it, he didn't sound like an ounce of excited. Like, there was no excitement in his voice. He didn't smile really or nothing. I mean, it looked like he didn't feel anything when he heard the Commander's name mentioned. I mean, I wonder how he reacted to, like, the Raiders, because he clearly likes Antonio Pierce, and remember, Antonio Pierce recruited him and coached him and everything over at Arizona State before he went to LSU. So I wonder how he reacted. Maybe he was still as nonchalant with the Raiders as he was talking about the Commanders. I don't know. But golly, I know he's nonchalant, but man, golly, man. But while Jayden Daniels was still talking in that clip, the coverage by the NFL Network, Dan Quinn was making like an interesting face and then like pointing somewhere and was joking around and things like that. He seemed to be in a very playful and fun mood, and Adam Peters smiled back at him, laughing and things like that. So does that mean that they're happy with what they saw today, or is Quinn just being Quinn? I really don't know how to read into this. I'm trying to reach here. I'm trying to grab for something that isn't there, and I'm still struggling. But I just thought it was really interesting that Dan Quinn was just so happy, and maybe he was pointing at Jayden Daniels, like the camera looked at him, and I believe he was like, man, look at him, like, you know what I'm saying, stop looking at me, man, that's the star of the show right there. He just looks so happy. So I don't know. Again, I'm just trying to give y'all all of the information that I have, and then y'all make y'all own conclusions from that. Now, Jayden Daniels also talking to ESPN after his pro day, he was asked what question he's been asked the most by NFL teams, and he said, how much I weigh. And he was just straight to the point, and I felt like that was probably the answer that all of us could have guessed, but it was just funny that he even admitted it. And then also, Daniel said that if he ran the 40 time in his pro day, he said he would have beaten both Thomas, who ran a 4.33, and Nabruce, who ran a 4.35. And I'm not going to lie, I doubt that. I think he's very fast, but I don't think he's that fast. I really don't. I feel like he would have ran somewhere in the low 4.4s, which is great. That's very fast. He would be one of the 5 most mobile quarterbacks in the NFL immediately the day he's drafted. But I think he's just talking out the side of his neck, talking about he would have beat Brian Thomas and Malik Nabers in the 40 times. If they would have a race right now, I'm sure Jayden Daniels will come third, especially with him going through all of that work to try to get up to 210 pounds, which he probably actually isn't in an everyday basis by the time we actually get to training camp and the regular season and things like that. And yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get a notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Again, like I told y'all before the intro, more mock drafts on the way. I'm working on film sessions for draft prospects. I'm working on a jersey update and what that potentially projects a lot of these players as far as their role for this team, defense, offense, special teams. And I'm giving y'all a big time cap space update as well. And we're also going to look at some potential top free agents that are still out there. Guys like Justin Simmons and David Bakhtiari, all pro guys, are still out there. Can we afford them? Is it worth bringing them in here? How much cap space do we have? And if we were to sign those guys, how much cap space will we have after that? So we're going to do a whole bunch of fun videos like that. Stay tuned for all of that. I'm updating y'all on some more top 30 visits that the Washington Commanders are having as well. So I'm going to catch y'all later. Stay tuned. I'm out.